The baby formula aisle stretched endlessly before me, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. My hands trembled as I calculated the cost again, knowing my bank account couldn't handle it. Noah's cries echoed for this stroller, drawing disapproving stares from other shoppers. I grabbed the cheapest brand and hurried toward the checkout, my face burning with shame. The cashier's sympathetic smile made it worse somehow. I fumbled with my card, praying it wouldn't decline, while Noah's wails grew more desperate with each passing second. The alarm shrieked at 5:30 a.m., jolting me from the 2 hours of sleep I'd managed. Noah had been up all night with another ear infection, and I'd used my last sick day. I stumbled through our tiny apartment, stepping over unpaid bills scattered on the floor. The coffee maker sputtered to life while I bounced Noah on my hip, both of us exhausted. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed the truth I couldn't hide anymore. Dark circles under my hazel eyes, chestnut hair falling from yesterday's bun. Defeat written across every line. Mrs. Tobson from next door waited patiently as I gathered Noah's diaper bag with shaking hands. She'd been my lifeline since he was born, watching him for practically nothing. "You look terrible, honey," she whispered, taking Noah gently. "Maybe you should call in sick today." Her concerned eyes made my chest tighten with unshed tears. I shook my head, kissing Noah's soft forehead one more time. Missing work meant missing rent, and I was already walking that dangerous tightrope between survival and disaster. The subway platform buzzed with morning commuters, all looking infinitely more put together than me. I clutched my lukewarm coffee like a lifeline, willing the caffeine to work miracles. My phone buzzed with a reminder about the quarterly meeting at 9. The same meeting where I'd present months of work to people who barely knew my name. The train screeched into the station, packed beyond capacity. I squeezed myself into the crowd, trying to ignore the formula stain on my blouse that I'd noticed too late. Ward Technology's gleaming lobby always made me feel small. Marble floors reflected the success I couldn't touch, while security guards nodded at executives I'd never spoken to. I slipped into the elevator with a group of well-dressed colleagues who discussed weekend plans I couldn't afford. Their laughter felt foreign, like a language I'd forgotten how to speak. My cramped cubicle waited on the 15th floor, surrounded by empty coffee cups and half-finished reports. The presentation file glowed on my screen, representing everything I had left. The conference room filled with senior staff, their expensive suits creating an intimidating wall of success. I clutched my notes, hoping no one could see my hands shaking. Next up, we have Mia Carter presenting the quarterly analytics. Amanda Chen announced from HR. Heads turned toward me with polite disinterest, already checking their phones. I stood slowly, gathering my courage along with my papers. This was my chance to prove I belonged here, that I was more than just another struggling employee. My voice cracked slightly as I began explaining the data trends, but I pushed forward. The numbers told a story of efficiency improvements and cost savings that I'd worked months to achieve. Then I saw him. Ethan Ward sat at the head of the table, his steel-gray eyes focused intently on me instead of his phone like everyone else. The attention felt overwhelming. His perfectly styled salt and pepper hair caught the morning light as he leaned forward, genuinely listening to every word I spoke about quarterly projections and market analysis. "Excellent work, Mia." Ethan's voice cut through the room as I finished. Other heads lifted from their devices, surprised by the CEO's attention to a mid-level analyst's presentation. "Thank you, Mr. Ward," I managed, starting to gather my materials. The room felt too warm suddenly, like all the oxygen had been sucked out through the vents. "Actually, could you stay after? I'd like to discuss your findings further." His smile seemed kind, but something in his piercing gaze made my stomach flutter nervously. The conference room emptied quickly, leaving me alone with the most powerful man in the building. Ethan Ward's presence filled the space, his expensive cologne lingering in the air. He moved closer, closing the distance between us with measured steps. "You look exhausted, Mia. Everything all right at home?" The personal question caught me completely off guard. My throat tightened. No one at work knew about Noah, about the sleepless nights, or the constant financial pressure crushing me from all sides like a slowly closing vise. "I'm fine, Mr. Ward. Just working hard," I lied, but my voice betrayed me with its shakiness. His gray eyes seemed to see right through my carefully constructed facade. He tilted his head slightly, studying my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear. "You have a child, don't you?" I can always tell. The statement hung in the air between us. I nodded slowly, unsure how he knew or what this conversation was really about. In the stark conference room. "Being a single parent is the hardest job in the world," Ethan said softly, his voice taking on a gentler tone. "I respect what you're doing, building a career while raising a child." Tears threatened behind my eyes at his unexpected understanding. No one had acknowledged my struggle before, and hearing it from someone so successful felt surreal and overwhelming. "Thank you," I whispered, not trusting my voice to say more. His kindness felt like a warm blanket after months of feeling invisible and utterly alone. "Have you eaten lunch today?" Ethan asked, glancing at his expensive watch. When I shook my head, he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly with practiced efficiency. "I'm having something sent up. You can't take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first, Mia." His concern felt genuine, almost fatherly. Within minutes, a gourmet meal arrived at my cubicle, far more expensive than anything I could afford. My colleagues stared as I unpacked restaurant-quality food with trembling hands. Jennifer Walsh appeared at my desk before I'd taken 2 bites, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Where did this come from? Did you order from Lawrence? That's like $50. "Mr. Ward sent it," I admitted quietly, not wanting to make a scene. Her eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her blonde hairline completely. "Ward sent you lunch." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Mia, honey, he doesn't just send lunch to random employees. What did you do?" Jennifer's words planted something cold in my stomach, but I pushed the feeling away. Ethan had been kind, nothing more than that between us in the empty conference room. The food tasted incredible, each bite a luxury I'd forgotten existed. For the first time in months, I felt cared for, like someone had noticed I was drowning. But Jennifer's knowing look lingered in my peripheral vision, making me question whether kindness from powerful men ever came without strings attached to pull me deeper. The elevator felt different on the way down, like I was carrying a secret I didn't understand. The lobby's marble floors reflected my confusion back at me. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Thompson. "Noah's been fussy. He might be getting another tooth. Another sleepless night ahead. Another day of barely functioning tomorrow." But the memory of Ethan's concerned gray eyes and unexpected kindness made the weight of everything feel slightly more manageable, like maybe I wasn't completely alone. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, preparing for the long subway ride home, a black car pulled up to the curb. The driver rolled down his window professionally. "Mia Carter, Mr. Ward arranged this ride for you." He gestured toward the back seat of what looked like an expensive sedan with tinted windows and leather seats. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, commuters flowing around me like water around a stone. This felt like too much, too personal, crossing some invisible line I couldn't define. The ride home passed in a blur of city lights and confused thoughts. The driver was professional, silent, but I felt like I was in someone else's life entirely. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hope you got home safely. Take care of yourself, Mia. E.W." The personal nature made my chest tighten. As we pulled up to my modest apartment building, I realized other tenants were watching through their windows. This luxury car didn't belong in my neighborhood at all. Mrs. Thompson handed Noah back with raised eyebrows, clearly noticing the expensive car pulling away from the curb. "Making new friends at work?" she asked with gentle curiosity. I bounced Noah on my hip, breathing in his familiar baby scent. My boss sent lunch and a ride home. He said I looked tired today. Bosses don't usually notice when employees are tired, honey, she said carefully. Just be careful. Powerful men don't do favors without expecting something in return, eventually. Noah finally settled after his bottle. His tiny hand curled around my finger as he slept. The apartment felt different somehow, like Ethan's attention had followed me home. I stared at the text message again, reading those few words over and over. The kindness felt real, but Mrs. Thompson's warning echoed in my mind relentlessly. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe a successful man could simply be kind to a struggling employee, without ulterior motives hiding beneath the surface of his generosity. The next morning brought another gourmet breakfast delivery to my desk, this time with a handwritten note on expensive cardstock. Thought you might need energy for the day ahead. E. My colleague's stares felt heavier now, whispers following me to the break room and back. Jennifer appeared again, her expression more serious than curious. Mia, this is the third day in a row. People are starting to talk, and not in a good way. What are they saying? I asked, though part of me already knew. The answer was written in their sideways glances and hushed conversations. They think you're sleeping with him, Jennifer said bluntly. And honestly, I can't blame them. This level of attention isn't normal for Ward. My stomach dropped. The food suddenly tasted like cardboard in my mouth, each bite harder to swallow than the last. My desk phone rang at exactly 2 p.m., Ethan's name flashing on the caller ID. I'd never given him my direct extension. Mia, I hope you enjoyed breakfast. I was thinking about Noah this morning. Does he have everything he needs? The personal nature of the question made my skin crawl, but his tone was so genuinely concerned that I found myself answering. He's fine, Mr. Ward. You don't need to worry about my personal life. I tried to keep my voice professional and distant, but I do worry. Single mothers face so many challenges. I'd like to help make things easier for you both. The way he said both sent chills down my spine. Noah was off limits, a line that couldn't be crossed. The office emptied around me as I finished updating client files, the familiar weight of overtime pressing down on my shoulders. My phone buzzed with another text from Ethan. Working late again? You should be home with Noah. This isn't healthy. How did he know I was still here? The realization that he was monitoring my movements made my hands shake. As I waited for the elevator, footsteps echoed behind me in the empty hallway. Ethan appeared, his expensive cologne filling the space. Perfect timing, he said with that unsettling smile. We can ride down together. I wanted to discuss something important with you. The elevator doors opened like a mouth, and I had no choice but to step inside with him. The elevator began its descent, and Ethan pressed the stop button between floors. The sudden halt made my stomach lurch violently. I've been thinking about your situation, Mia. A brilliant woman like you shouldn't have to struggle like this every day. His gray eyes studied my face intently, searching for something I couldn't identify and didn't want to give. I have a proposition for you, he continued, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Let me help you properly. What do you mean? My voice came out smaller than intended, barely audible in the confined space between us. Financial security, a better apartment, the best childcare money can buy. Everything you and Noah need to thrive. The elevator felt smaller with each word, the air thicker and harder to breathe. In exchange for what? His smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth that looked predatory in the fluorescent lighting. Your loyalty, of course. Your gratitude. The way he said gratitude made my skin crawl. I understood now what Mrs. Thompson had warned me about. I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept that kind of help. I reached for the elevator button with trembling fingers. He caught my wrist gently but firmly, his grip surprisingly strong. Think about Noah, Mia. think about his future possibilities. The mention of my son's name on his lips made rage bubble up inside my chest, hot and protective. Ethan released my wrist and pressed the button himself, the elevator resuming its downward journey with a mechanical whir. Take the weekend to consider it. These opportunities don't come along often, especially for someone in your position. The doors opened to the lobby, and I stepped out on unsteady legs, feeling like I'd escaped something dangerous. Saturday morning found me pacing my small apartment while Noah played with his toys on the living room floor. Ethan's offer replayed in my mind like a broken record, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Everything's a Noah, but the price felt too high, too unclear, too much like selling pieces of my soul for comfort. While Noah napped, I opened my laptop and searched for information about Ethan Ward, looking beyond the glowing business profiles. Most results were predictably positive, but buried deep in search results, I found a few concerning threads on anonymous forums. CEO at tech company becoming inappropriately involved with female employees caught my attention, making my pulse quicken with recognition. The forum posts were vague but consistent, a pattern of targeting struggling single mothers, offering help, then escalating demands. Started with lunches and rides, ended with him expecting complete control over my life. One anonymous post read. My hands shook as I read story after story that mirrored my own experience perfectly. Sunday evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered on the fourth ring. Mia, this is Sarah Mitchell. I used to work in your department. Jennifer Walsh gave me your number. Her voice sounded strained, like she was forcing herself to make this call, despite every instinct telling her not to. I heard through the grapevine that Ethan Ward has been paying special attention to you lately, Sarah continued carefully. Yes, he's been very generous with his help. I chose my words cautiously, unsure how much to reveal. Mia, I need to tell you something. 3 years ago, I was in your exact position. Single mom, struggling financially. Sarah's story unfolded like a roadmap of my recent experiences, the lunches, the personal questions, the gradual escalation of involvement. He offered to help me too. At first, it seemed like a miracle, like someone finally understood how hard it was. Her voice grew quieter, more pained. But the help came with expectations, demands, things I couldn't give. When I tried to pull back, establish boundaries, things got ugly fast, Sarah continued. My performance reviews tanked mysteriously overnight. Projects I'd worked on for months suddenly had major errors that weren't there before. My computer files were corrupted repeatedly. HR started calling me in for increasingly serious infractions I knew I hadn't committed. It was systematic destruction. I had to quit eventually. There was no other choice. He made my life there completely impossible. Sarah's words confirmed my worst fears about what rejection might cost me professionally and personally. But Mia, you're not the first since me. There have been others. Jennifer Walsh knows more than she's telling you. Monday morning, I cornered Jennifer in the break room before anyone else arrived, desperate for answers Sarah had hinted at. Sarah Mitchell called me. I said without preamble. She told me about other women. Who else, Jennifer? Jennifer's face went pale, her coffee cup trembling in her hands as she glanced around the empty room nervously. There was Rebecca in accounting, Lisa from marketing, and Amanda in HR before she transferred departments suddenly. Jennifer whispered. They all had the same look you have now. Scared, grateful, confused, and they all left within 6 months. The pattern was becoming clearer and more terrifying with each name she mentioned. David Kim in security might talk to you, Jennifer added quietly. He's seen things, heard things, but be careful who you trust. What do you mean? I asked, though part of me already suspected the scope of Ethan's influence. His reach goes further than you think. HR, management, even some of the board members owe him favors. During my lunch break, I found David Kim making his rounds on the third floor, checking doors with methodical precision. "Mr. Kim, could I speak with you privately? It's about Mr. Ward and some concerning behavior I've witnessed." He looked around cautiously before nodding toward an empty conference room, his expression grim but understanding. "I've been working security here for 8 years, David said quietly. I've seen this pattern before with different women. The late-night meetings, the personal calls, the way certain employees suddenly start getting special treatment, then disappear." His confirmation made my worst fears feel concrete and undeniable. No longer just paranoid speculation on my part. The thing is, he's smart about it. Never anything overtly illegal. Always plausible deniability built into every interaction. David pulled out a small notebook from his shirt pocket. "But I keep track. Dates, times, witnesses when possible." "Why?" I asked, surprised by his meticulous record-keeping and obvious investment in this pattern of behavior. "My daughter is starting college next year. If Ward ever targets her when she interns here," David's jaw tightened. "Someone needs to document this pattern before it's too late for everyone involved, including the women still working here." His protective instincts reminded me of my own fierce love for Noah, the lengths parents go to shield their children. "What would it take to expose him?" I asked, surprising myself with the question that had formed without conscious thought. David looked at me seriously, weighing something in his expression. Multiple witnesses, documented incidents, and someone brave enough to come forward publicly. The other women who left, they were too scared, too damaged, or too financially desperate to fight back. That evening, I held Noah close as he fell asleep, his tiny hand gripping my finger with complete trust. The thought of Ethan having any influence over Noah's future made my decision crystallize with sudden, fierce clarity. I couldn't let him do to other mothers what he'd done to Sarah, Rebecca, Lisa, and Amanda. My phone buzzed with Ethan's nightly check-in. "Have you considered my offer? Time is running short for this opportunity." Instead of my usual polite deflection, I typed back, "I need more details about what you're proposing exactly." If I was going to expose him, I needed him to be explicit about his expectations and demands. Within minutes, he responded, "Let's discuss this properly. My office, tomorrow after hours. Come alone so we can speak freely." The invitation felt like walking into a lion's den, but it was exactly what I needed for documentation. I forwarded the text to a new email account I'd created, starting my own evidence file systematically. Tuesday dragged by with agonizing slowness as I prepared mentally for the evening meeting that could change everything. I charged my phone fully and tested the voice recording app, making sure it would capture clear audio. David Kim gave me a subtle nod when our paths crossed, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone. As the office emptied around 6 p.m., my heart pounded with anticipation and terror in equal measure. Ethan's text arrived right on schedule. "Ready when you are. Door will be unlocked. Looking forward to our conversation." I took a deep breath, thinking of Noah, of Sarah, of all the women who'd been silenced. I walked down the empty hallway toward Ethan's corner office, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The recording app was already running, hidden in my pocket. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and run, but I thought of Noah sleeping peacefully at Lisa's apartment. A hallway light seemed dimmer than usual, casting long shadows that felt like omens of what was to come. Ethan's office door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling into the darkened hallway. I knocked softly before pushing it open completely. "Mia, come in. Close the door behind you, please." His voice was smooth, controlled, but there was something predatory in his smile. I heard the soft click of the lock as I turned the handle, realizing too late that he had engaged it electronically. "Please sit down. Can I offer you something to drink? Wine, perhaps? Ethan gestured to the leather chair across from his massive mahogany desk. His office felt different after hours, more intimate, more dangerous. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows like distant stars. I'm fine, thank you. You mentioned wanting to discuss something specific. I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. Straight to business. I like that about you, Mia. Ethan's smile didn't reach his steel grey eyes as he leaned back in his chair. You're struggling financially, working long hours, raising a child alone. It's admirable, but ultimately unsustainable without proper support. The way he said proper support made my skin crawl, the implication hanging heavy in the air between us. I have a solution that could benefit us both tremendously. Ethan stood and walked around his desk, perching on its edge. I'm prepared to cover all your expenses. Rent, childcare, groceries, everything Noah needs. No more financial stress or sleepless nights. His proximity made me uncomfortable, but I forced myself to stay seated and listen to his complete offer. In exchange, I would simply need your loyalty, your discretion, and your companionship when I require it. His voice was silk over steel. Companionship? I managed to ask, though we both knew exactly what he meant by that carefully chosen euphemism. Nothing you couldn't handle, I'm sure. You're an intelligent woman who understands how mutually beneficial arrangements work in business. Think about it, Mia. Noah would have everything he needs. The best schools, healthcare, opportunities. You'd never worry about money again. Ethan moved closer, his expensive cologne overwhelming in the confined space. All I ask is that you show appropriate gratitude. I could feel the recording device capturing every calculated word, every veiled threat disguised as generous opportunity. This is a lot to consider, I said carefully, forcing my voice to sound uncertain rather than disgusted. Of course it is. It's a life-changing opportunity. His hand touched my shoulder, making my skin crawl beneath the fabric. What exactly would you expect from me in terms of companionship? I needed him to be more explicit for the recording. Weekend trips, business dinners, private meetings when I need to unwind from the pressures of running this company. His grip tightened slightly. You're a beautiful woman, Mia. Surely you understand the value of providing comfort to someone who can provide security. The euphemisms were thin veils over his true intentions, and his arrogance was making him increasingly direct about his expectations. I don't expect an answer tonight, but I do need one soon. Ethan returned to his chair, the picture of professional composure. Your current situation isn't sustainable, and other opportunities may not remain available indefinitely. The threat was barely concealed now. How long do I have to decide? I asked, playing along with his game while my phone recorded everything. Let's say by Friday. That gives you 3 days to consider what's best for you and Noah's future. His smile was told now, all pretense of kindness abandoned. I hope you'll make the smart choice, Mia. And if I choose differently? The words slipped out before I could stop them, but I needed his response recorded. Well, single motherhood is challenging even under the best circumstances. When professional opportunities become limited, he let the sentence hang. I'd hate to see someone with your potential struggle unnecessarily, especially when such generous alternatives exist. The threat was crystal clear now. Comply or face professional destruction, just like Sarah and the others before me. I should get home to Noah. Lisa is watching him, and I don't want to impose too late. Of course, family first. His tone mocked the very concept as he pressed a button to unlock the door. I stood on shaking legs, desperate to get out of that suffocating office and away from his predatory presence. Think carefully, Mia. Opportunities like this don't come along often, especially for someone in your particular circumstances. I nodded without speaking, not trusting my voice to remain steady if I tried to respond to his veiled threat. The door clicked shut behind me, and I walked quickly toward the elevator, my heart pounding with each step. In the elevator, I stopped the recording and immediately uploaded it to my secure email account, my hands shaking with adrenaline. 23 minutes of clear audio capturing Ethan's proposition, complete with threats and implications that no court would misinterpret. I had him. The question now was what to do with this explosive evidence that could destroy him. I called a taxi rather than taking public transportation, too shaken to navigate the subway system safely in my current state. The city lights blurred past the window as I thought about Ethan's confident assumption that I would accept his degrading offer. He had no idea that instead of trapping me, he had just provided the rope for his own professional hanging. Lisa took one look at my face and immediately offered tea without asking questions, her maternal instincts recognizing my distress. "How did it go?" she asked gently as I gathered Noah's things with trembling hands. "Better than expected, actually," I managed, surprising myself with the truth in that statement, despite everything that had happened. Back in our apartment, I held Noah close as he slept peacefully, unaware of the storm brewing around us. His innocent face reminded me why I was doing this, not just for myself, but for every woman who might face Ethan's predation. I opened my laptop and began transcribing the recording, preparing to document every disgusting detail of his proposition. I spent hours researching investigative journalists who specialized in corporate misconduct and sexual harassment cases in the business world. Rebecca Torres kept appearing in my searches, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter known for taking down powerful executives who abused their positions. Her articles about workplace predators were thorough, well-sourced, and had resulted in real consequences for the perpetrators she exposed. "Miss Torres, I have documented evidence of systematic sexual harassment by a prominent CEO, affecting multiple women over several years." I attached the audio file, David's security observations, and contact information for Sarah and the other victims Jennifer had mentioned. My finger hovered over the send button, knowing this action would change everything irreversibly for both Ethan and myself. At 3 a.m., with Noah sleeping peacefully in his crib, I pressed send on the email that would destroy Ethan Ward. There was no taking it back now. The evidence was in the hands of someone who had the power to expose him. I felt a strange mixture of terror and relief as I finally closed my laptop and tried to sleep. My phone buzzed with Ethan's morning message. "I hope you're giving serious consideration to our discussion. Time is valuable for both of us." I responded with careful ambiguity, still processing everything. It's a significant decision that requires careful thought. By noon, Rebecca Torres had replied to my email requesting a phone call to verify the authenticity of my claims. "Mrs. Carter, I've reviewed your materials. This appears to be part of a larger pattern of predatory behavior." Rebecca's voice was professional, but compassionate. "Are you prepared for what exposing this will mean? He'll likely try to destroy your reputation and career in retaliation." "He's already doing that," I replied. "At least this way, other women won't have to go through what I have." Rebecca explained her process, corroborating evidence, reaching out to other victims, and getting legal experts to review the material. This could take weeks to properly investigate and verify. "Can you maintain your current situation that long without raising suspicion?" "I'll have to," I said, thinking of Noah and all the women who had been silenced before me. By Thursday, Rebecca had contacted 3 former employees who confirmed similar experiences with Ethan's predatory behavior and inappropriate propositions. David Kim had agreed to provide his security logs and observations as supporting evidence for the investigative piece. The web of evidence was growing stronger, creating an undeniable pattern that even Ethan's lawyers couldn't dismiss or discredit. Ethan's final message arrived exactly at 5 p.m. "I need your answer now, Mia. This opportunity expires today." I stared at the text, knowing Rebecca needed more time, but unable to delay without raising his suspicions further. I need the weekend to arrange childcare and other logistics. Can we meet Monday to discuss the details? Acceptable. Monday evening, my office again. Come prepared to discuss practical arrangements. His reply came within minutes. The arrogance in his assumption that I would accept his degrading offer made my stomach turn with disgust. But it also bought Rebecca the additional time she needed to complete her investigation and prepare for publication. Saturday and Sunday passed in a blur of nervous energy and constant communication with Rebecca's research team. 2 more former employees had come forward with similar stories, creating an undeniable pattern of predatory behavior spanning years. By Sunday evening, the article was written and scheduled for publication Monday morning, timed to coincide with my meeting. I woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages as Rebecca's exposé went live on the news website. Tech CEO's pattern of sexual harassment exposed dominated the homepage with Ethan's photo prominently displayed. My phone rang constantly as reporters, colleagues, and friends tried to reach me for comments about the bombshell article. The article was comprehensive and devastating. 5 women's stories, documented evidence, expert legal commentary, and corporate governance failures. Social media exploded with reactions, sharing, and support for the victims who had finally found their voices. Ethan's company stock began plummeting within hours as investors distanced themselves from the growing scandal and public backlash. At noon, Ethan called me directly, his voice tight with barely controlled rage and desperation. "You have no idea what you've done. This will destroy everything I've built over decades of hard work." "You destroyed it yourself," I replied calmly. "I just documented what you chose to do to vulnerable women. You think you've won, but I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." His threat was empty now. "Ethan, you're done. The FBI is already investigating, and your own board has called an emergency meeting for tonight." The silence on his end told me he was finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his self-inflicted destruction. By 3 p.m., Ethan had been placed on indefinite suspension, pending a full investigation into the harassment allegations. The board issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions and promising full cooperation with law enforcement authorities. My colleagues began reaching out with support and apologies for not recognizing the signs of his predatory behavior sooner. Tuesday morning brought news of criminal charges being filed and a class action lawsuit by multiple victims seeking damages. Ethan's assets were frozen pending investigation into potential financial misconduct related to his abuse of corporate resources. The man who had threatened to destroy my career was now facing the complete destruction of his own empire. That evening, I held Noah close as news coverage continued on every major network, finally feeling safe for the first time. "We did it, sweetheart," I whispered to my sleeping son. "No one will ever have that kind of power over us again." The phone rang with job offers from competitors who wanted to hire the woman brave enough to take down Ethan Ward. Rebecca's follow-up articles sparked an industry-wide conversation about protecting employees from predatory executives and corporate abuse of power. I became an advocate for workplace harassment victims, using my experience to help others find their voices and seek justice. Most importantly, Noah would grow up in a world where his mother had shown him that standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful, was always the right choice. 3 weeks later, I sat in my kitchen watching Noah play with colorful blocks on his blanket. The morning news still covered Ethan's downfall, but I'd finally stopped watching every update compulsively. My phone buzzed with another interview request from a major network. The producer wanted to discuss my brave stand against corporate abuse. I declined politely, as I had dozens of others. Fame wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted peace, safety, and the chance to rebuild our lives without fear. The victory came with complications I hadn't anticipated. Former colleagues avoided me at the grocery store, whispering behind their hands about the woman who brought down Ethan Ward. Some saw me as a hero, Others viewed me as a troublemaker who destroyed a respected company and hundreds of jobs in the process. I reminded myself that Ethan's actions had destroyed the company, not mine, but guilt still gnawed at me during sleepless nights. Friday, my inbox contained 17 serious job offers from companies wanting to hire the whistleblower who took down Ward Industries. The salaries offered were significantly higher than my previous position. Tech Forward Solutions offered me a director-level position with full remote work flexibility and comprehensive childcare benefits. Their CEO personally called to express admiration for my courage. Other companies promised ethical workplaces, zero-tolerance harassment policies, and leadership roles in developing better employee protection programs. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ethan's lawyers contacted me through Rebecca with a settlement offer. They wanted to pay me a substantial sum in exchange for my silence about any additional incidents. Don't even consider it, Rebecca advised during our call. That money comes with strings attached. They want to control your narrative forever. I agreed immediately. No amount of money was worth giving Ethan's people any power over my voice or my future testimony. Saturday morning brought an unexpected gift. While playing on his blanket, Noah looked directly at me and said, "Mama," clear as day for the first time. Tears streamed down my face as I scooped him up, spinning around our small living room. After months of fear and uncertainty, this simple moment felt miraculous. "Yes, baby, I'm your mama," I whispered against his soft hair. "And I'll always protect you, no matter what it takes." A month later, I received an invitation that took my breath away. The House Subcommittee on Workplace Safety wanted me to testify about corporate harassment and abuse of power. The hearing would be televised nationally, giving me a platform to speak for countless women who had been silenced by powerful men like Ethan. My hands shook as I read the formal invitation. This was bigger than just my story. This could create real legislative change. Rebecca helped me prepare my testimony, focusing on specific policy recommendations rather than just my personal experience with Ethan's predatory behavior and manipulation. We outlined concrete steps: mandatory reporting systems, independent oversight boards, whistleblower protection funds, and criminal penalties for executives who abuse their positions of authority. "You're not just a victim telling your story," Rebecca reminded me. "You're an expert, proposing solutions to a systemic problem." I couldn't sleep the night before flying to Washington. Noah sensed my anxiety and fussed more than usual, requiring extra rocking and soothing lullabies. Lisa offered to watch him during the hearing, understanding the historical significance of the moment. Her support meant everything during this overwhelming experience. "You're going to change the world tomorrow," she said as she took Noah. "Make sure you remember that when you're nervous." The committee room was packed with reporters, advocates, and other witnesses scheduled to testify. Camera flashes exploded as I walked to the witness table. I thought about Sarah, who'd first warned me about Ethan, about Marcus, who'd encouraged me to take action when I felt powerless and afraid, about all the women whose voices had been silenced by men like Ethan. Today, I would speak for all of us together. Good morning, Chairwoman Davis and committee members. My name is Nia Carter, and I'm here to discuss how corporate power structures enable predatory behavior against vulnerable employees. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I could see Rebecca in the gallery, giving me an encouraging nod when I glanced her way. What happened to me was not an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern that destroys careers, families, and lives. "Ms. Carter," asked Representative Johnson, "what specific legislative changes would have protected you from Mr. Ward's harassment and professional retaliation?" I leaned forward confidently. "First, independent oversight boards for harassment complaints, removing HR departments from companies' direct control. Second, federal whistleblower protection funds to support employees during investigations. Third, criminal penalties for executives who use corporate resources to facilitate harassment or retaliation against victims. These aren't civil matters, they're crimes. Representative Martinez asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you believe you overreacted to what some might characterize as simply inappropriate workplace behavior, rather than criminal misconduct? The room fell silent. I thought about Ethan's threatening smile, his locked office door, his explicit demands for loyalty in exchange for financial support. Congressman, sexual coercion backed by economic threats is not inappropriate behavior. It's a crime that destroys lives and careers systematically. My final statement became a viral video within hours. Every woman deserves to work without fear of predatory bosses who weaponize their power against vulnerable employees. We cannot allow corporate boardrooms to become hunting grounds where powerful men prey on women struggling to survive and support their families. This committee has the power to ensure my son grows up in a workplace where merit matters more than submission. The flight back felt surreal. Passengers recognized me from the hearings, with several women quietly thanking me for speaking out on their behalf. One flight attendant slipped me a note. My boss did similar things. Seeing you speak gave me courage to file my own complaint. I realized the ripple effects of speaking truth to power extended far beyond my personal situation with Ethan and his company. The next week brought interview requests from every major news program. My testimony clips played constantly on social media, generating millions of views and shares. Hashtag Mia Carter and hashtag Workplace Predators trending nationwide as women shared their own experiences with harassment and retaliation from powerful bosses and supervisors throughout various industries. But I was exhausted by the attention and wanted to focus on Noah rather than becoming a permanent public figure. The FBI expanded their investigation into Ethan's company after my testimony revealed additional patterns of misconduct and potential financial crimes linked to his harassment campaigns. 3 more executives were suspended as investigators uncovered a systematic culture of protecting predatory behavior and silencing victims through legal threats and economic pressure. The company's stock price plummeted further as clients canceled contracts and investors fled the growing scandal surrounding the entire corporate leadership structure. News broke that Ethan had been arrested on federal charges including wire fraud, conspiracy, and violation of civil rights under color of law. His mugshot looked nothing like the confident predator who'd cornered me in his office just months earlier. His hair was disheveled, eyes hollow, expensive suit replaced by Orange County jail attire. I felt no satisfaction seeing his downfall, only relief that he couldn't hurt anyone else the way he'd hurt so many women. Instead of accepting corporate job offers, I decided to start my own consulting firm, helping companies develop genuine anti-harassment policies and survivor support systems. My first client was Tech Forward, the company that had originally offered me a director position. They wanted authentic change, not just legal compliance measures. The work felt meaningful in ways my previous job never had. I was turning my trauma into purpose, my experience into expertise. Noah took his first steps on a sunny Tuesday morning in our new apartment, bigger, brighter, and completely free from Ethan's shadow and influence. I'd used the consulting income to move us to a better neighborhood with excellent schools and a playground where Noah could grow safely. As he toddled toward me with a huge grin, I marveled at how far we'd both come from those dark days of fear. The Workplace Protection Act passed the House by a wide margin, incorporating many of the recommendations from my testimony and subsequent advocacy work. The bill established federal oversight for harassment complaints, whistleblower protection funds, and criminal penalties for executives who abuse their positions of authority against employees. President Morrison signed it into law on a Friday, with me standing behind her in the Rose Garden as cameras captured the historic moment. A year after my testimony, I received a letter from a young woman named Jessica, who'd used the new law to expose harassment at her company. "Your courage gave me the strength to speak up," she wrote. The protection fund helped me survive financially during the investigation. Thank you for making this possible. I read her letter to Noah during his nap time, explaining how sometimes doing the right thing helps people we'll never meet. Ethan was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $50 million in restitution to his victims and affected employees. The judge's words rang in the courtroom. Corporate power is not a license to prey upon vulnerable employees. Mr. Ward's systematic abuse of his position represents a betrayal of fundamental workplace rights. I watched from the gallery as he was led away in handcuffs, finally held accountable for years of predatory behavior and intimidation. Now 18 months old, Noah babbles constantly and fills our home with laughter every single day. He has no memory of those frightening early months when we lived under Ethan's shadow. I've started a college fund with money from my consulting work and speaking engagements. He'll grow up knowing his mother fought for justice and won. Most importantly, he'll learn that standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful, is always worth the risk when protecting what matters most. My consulting firm now employs 12 people, all dedicated to creating safer workplaces for vulnerable employees throughout various industries. We've helped over 200 companies develop comprehensive protection policies. 3 of my employees are other survivors of workplace harassment who've turned their experiences into expertise, just like I did with my own trauma. Rebecca joined our communications team, using her investigative skills to help expose systemic problems before they destroy more lives and careers. I travel nationwide speaking to corporate boards, women's groups, and college students about workplace harassment, employee rights, and the importance of speaking truth to power. The most rewarding events are the small gatherings where individual women approach me afterward with their own stories of harassment and intimidation. I filed my complaint yesterday, they whisper. Watching you gave me the courage to finally speak up about what happened to me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd accepted Ethan's offer that night in his locked office, trading my dignity for financial security. I would have become another silent victim, complicit in my own exploitation, while he continued preying on other vulnerable women with impunity. Instead, I chose the harder path, and in doing so changed not just my life, but potentially thousands of others across the country. Award industry scandal sparked a nationwide reckoning with corporate harassment that extended far beyond just one company or individual predator. Dozens of similar cases emerged as women found courage. New investigations uncovered systematic patterns of abuse at major corporations, leading to criminal charges against 15 executives and hundreds of millions in settlements for victims. The culture of silence that had protected predators for decades finally began cracking under the weight of voices that refused to stay quiet. This evening, I tucked Noah into his crib in our bright nursery, reading him the same bedtime story my mother once read to me. Through the window, city lights twinkled peacefully, no longer seeming threatening, but full of possibility for the future we're building together, day by day. Sweet dreams, my brave boy, I whispered, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to make the world a little safer for him. 3 years have passed since that pivotal night when I chose courage over compliance, dignity over desperation. Noah runs through our garden now, chasing butterflies, with infectious giggles that remind me daily why every sacrifice was worthwhile. The consulting firm has expanded to 3 cities with plans for national coverage by next year. We've prevented countless cases of harassment through proactive policy implementation and cultural transformation initiatives across major corporations. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah Mitchell, now our West Coast director. Another company just signed on. They specifically requested the Carter Protocol for executive accountability. At Stanford Business School, I stand before 200 eager MBA students discussing corporate ethics and power dynamics. Their faces reflect the same ambition I once felt: tempered now by hard-won wisdom about institutional corruption. Power without accountability breeds predators, I explain, clicking to a slide showing workplace harassment statistics. Your generation has the opportunity to build different corporate cultures from the ground up. A young woman raises her hand. How do we recognize the warning signs early? Her question takes me back to my own naive younger self, trusting authority figures who exploited that trust for personal gain. Rebecca's documentary Silence Breakers, the Ward Industries investigation, premieres at Sundance to standing ovations and immediate acquisition offers from major streaming platforms. The film follows 3 survivors, including myself, through our journey from victimization to advocacy. Watching myself on screen still feels surreal. The frightened young mother transformed into someone who changed federal law. Critics call it powerful and necessary. But what matters most are the survivors who recognize themselves in our stories. The film's success generates renewed interest in corporate accountability legislation, with senators from both parties proposing additional protections for whistleblowers and expanded criminal penalties for executive misconduct. Mummy, why do people sometimes do mean things at work? Noah asks during breakfast, his 4-year-old curiosity sparked by overhearing a phone interview I conducted with a journalist yesterday. I kneeled to his eye level, choosing words carefully. Sometimes people with power forget to be kind, but brave people like Mummy help make sure everyone stays safe and gets treated fairly. He nods solemnly, then brightens. Like superheroes? His innocent analogy makes me smile. If fighting corporate predators makes me a superhero in his eyes, I'll wear that cape proudly forever. The National Association of Working Women presents me with their Courage in Leadership Award at a gala attended by 500 advocates, survivors, and corporate executives committed to meaningful change rather than performative gestures. Mia Carter transformed personal trauma into systematic change, the presenter announces. Her work has protected thousands of employees and fundamentally altered how we approach workplace safety and executive accountability. As I accept the Crystal Trophy, I think of all the women who came before me, whose voices were silenced or ignored. This recognition belongs to them too. My team now includes former prosecutors, HR specialists, and technology experts who've developed an anonymous reporting app that's been adopted by Fortune 500 companies nationwide. The platform has processed over 10,000 reports, leading to hundreds of investigations. We're not just preventing harassment, explains Dr. Amanda Chen, our Chief Technology Officer and former HR representative who switched sides after witnessing too much corporate cover-up activity. We're creating data that proves systematic problems exist. The app's success has attracted investment offers, but we've chosen to remain non-profit. Some fights can't be won through profit motives. They require pure dedication to justice and accountability. Letters arrive daily from survivors worldwide, sharing their stories and thanking me for giving them hope. A factory worker in Ohio, a nurse in Texas, a teacher in California. Each story reinforces why this work matters beyond personal healing. I reported my supervisor yesterday, writes Maria from Phoenix. Your book gave me the courage to finally speak up. The company took immediate action and thanked me for coming forward. These victories feel more significant than any award or media recognition. Real people living safer lives because we refused to stay silent. That's the true measure of our success. The college fund has grown substantially through book royalties and speaking fees. Noah will have choices I never had. Freedom to pursue his passions without financial desperation, making him vulnerable to exploitation by predatory authority figures. But more importantly, he's growing up understanding that fighting injustice is a moral obligation, not an optional act of heroism. He volunteers at our office events, distributing materials, and charming donors with his earnest explanations of Mommy's important work. His generation will inherit workplaces we've made safer, but the fight for dignity and respect requires constant vigilance from every person who refuses to accept abuse as normal. 5 years after my first testimony, I returned to Capitol Hill for hearings on expanding the Workplace Protection Act to cover independent contractors and gig economy workers, modern vulnerabilities that require updated legal protections. Ms. Carter, the committee chair begins. Your previous testimony led to historic legislation. What gaps remain in protecting vulnerable workers from exploitation and harassment in today's evolving economy? I lean into the microphone, drawing on years of consulting experience. Predators adapt faster than laws. We must stay ahead of their tactics with comprehensive protections that follow workers wherever they go. At Rebecca's wedding, I watch her dance with her investigative journalist husband, both dedicated to exposing corruption and protecting vulnerable people. Their partnership represents hope. Two people who've chosen meaningful work over easy profits. You know, Rebecca says during a quiet moment, that first interview changed both our lives. I never expected one story to become a career-defining moment, but helping expose Ethan opened doors to investigations I never imagined pursuing. Her success reminds me that courage is contagious. When one person stands up, others find strength to join the fight for justice and accountability. A new case lands on my desk. A tech startup where the founder allegedly pressures female employees into mentorship relationships that cross professional boundaries. The pattern feels painfully familiar, yet each case teaches us new lessons about predatory behavior. He uses the same playbook Ethan did, explains the whistleblower during our confidential video call. Special attention, expensive gifts, then gradual isolation and escalating demands. But now I know the warning signs thanks to your work. We begin building another case, gathering evidence and preparing for another battle against institutionalized abuse of power. The work never ends, but neither does our determination to protect others. Noah presents his kindergarten class project about community helpers, featuring a poster with my photo alongside police officers and firefighters. His teacher later emails. He explained very seriously that his mummy helps keep workplaces safe from bad bosses. His innocent pride in my work validates every difficult moment of our journey. He's learning that ordinary people could create extraordinary change when they refuse to accept injustice as inevitable or normal. The other children ask questions about my work, their curiosity suggesting a generation that will demand better treatment and hold leaders accountable from their very first jobs. The United Nations invites me to speak at their global conference on workplace rights, addressing delegates from 50 countries about developing international standards for preventing executive abuse and protecting whistleblowers from retaliation. Corporate harassment transcends borders, I tell the Assembly. Multinational corporations must be held to consistent standards regardless of where they operate. Predatory behavior in any country diminishes workplace safety everywhere in the global economy. The response is overwhelming. Requests for consultation from governments and NGOs worldwide. Our small firm's impact is expanding beyond anything I imagined when this journey began with one frightened single mother fighting one powerful predator. Walking past Ward Industries' former headquarters, now converted to affordable housing, I feel a profound sense of closure. The building that once symbolized Ethan's unchecked power now provides homes for families like mine once was. Struggling but hopeful. Noah tugs my hand. Mummy, is that where you used to work? His question is casual, unaware of the significance. That building represents a battlefield where I found my voice and changed my life forever. Yes, sweetheart, that's where Mummy learned to be brave. The simple truth encompasses everything. Fear transformed into strength, silence broken into advocacy, one woman's courage rippling into systematic change.